Leominster Planning Board for January 28th, 2019. 1.0, call to order.
Patrick Furlow.
Here.
Fred Fredericks.
Here.
Paul Weiser. Salvatore Ciccone.
Here.
John Souza. Carol Victoriosa.
Here.
Thomas Kerrigan.
Present.
2.0, minutes of previous meeting, January 7th, 2019.
I make a motion to accept as written. Second.
Motion made second to accept the planning board minutes from January 7th, 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 3.0, plans submitted. 3.1, A&R approval for 712 Main Street.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson,
Good evening, Frank Preston.
Madam members of the board, and Stephanie. For the record, my name is Frank Preston of Whitman and Bainley Associates. I'm here to present an approval not required plan that is a revision of one that was approved by the planning board in December of 2017. I just brought copies of the original one just for reference. Paul Boucher has a buyer, and in negotiating with that buyer, he tweaked the boundaries of the lot that he's creating. Yeah, a bit of a tweak. And you'll notice also he's added a utility easement serving the back property through the remaining lot that's there.
So
it's lot 1
I'll show you.
parcel A.
I have the new one.
It's a revision. So this is, see how it's like this? And now it's like this. It's just a bigger cutout here.
I can't imagine why it would make a difference, but there you have it. Motion approved.
Second. Motion to endorse and a second by Fred. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Good job.
That was fast. Congratulations. Good.
Wow.
Bringing them on.
3.2, special permit approval for 1052 Mount Elam Road for the Watershed Protection District. We have to schedule this for a public hearing.
Yeah, so we need time to advertise, so that would put us at 3/4, March 4th. So we have one
See you
meeting.
guys.
Thanks, Frank.
Meet 4 at 6:30.
Okay.
Sounds good. Second.
Motion by Sal, second by Paul. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 4.0, old business, none. 5.0, new business, none. 6.0, communication. 6.1, planning board recommendation for city council petition C-38 Dean J. Mazzarella, mayor, to accept Duggan Drive and Comstock Road as public ways. And we have an email from the DPW.
Yep, John Rosemary.
that
Yes.
they recommend
Yep. So
the
motion.
roads were completed and met all the construction standards in 1987. As-built were drawn up and submitted. Developer never petitioned city council for street acceptance. Now the road needs attention in order to use Chapter 90 funds. The roads need to be made public.
All right, so recommendation for approval based on the memo from John Rosemary.
Okay, let me just make sure. Okay, Duggan Drive and Comstock Roads. Okay, this is a referral, so it's a approval. Yes, well, and it goes to the city council.
So we're just recommending an approval.
You made a recommendation, you approved. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 6.2, elect planning board chairperson and vice chair. So I told Elizabeth, well, we can't do this without John here, and Elizabeth, being efficient, contacted John, and he is willing to serve for another, whatever the term is.
17 years.
It's been longer than that. It's been 22.
John, it's been 22?
1997, we were just talking about when we lost TA.
He took over the TA as chairman.
So yeah, he took over. Yeah. And then we didn't have a vice chair until years later,
Yeah.
right?
No, I think it was the same time.
Same time? So John's been contacted. There's a motion on the table here to keep things status quo.
If that's the motion you want to make?
I would like to make that motion.
I second it.
Unless
Motion
there's somebody
made.
else who wants to do it.
Yeah.
I'm looking in that direction.
I tried.
We know it's not Tom.
Okay, then yes, I'll second Sam's motion.
Motion made and seconded for,
Do we do them separately, Chair? Let's do them separately.
okay.
Motion to reappoint John Souza, Board Chairperson.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to make Carol Vittorioso Vice Chair.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
6.3, discussion of the filing of,
When was the last time we voted on that? It's been more than a year.
I think it's every,
Years, I bet.
is it every 3, what's the statute
I
say, or
don't
this
remember.
It's
ordinance?
every year.
I don't remember ever.
Used to be.
My guess is it's on the agenda because somebody probably realized that it was time to
Yeah.
make it official again.
Yeah.
No, we did it in the last 2 years. Maybe you weren't here.
I don't know, I've been here 3 years, we haven't done it.
No, I think it's every year, but
No.
But we,
It doesn't
sometimes
matter
we
anyway.
It just
don't do
kind of
it.
just goes.
it doesn't matter anyway.
Doesn't matter.
I don't think we ever did it for Tony. I don't remember ever doing it the 3 years I was here when he was here.
I remember doing it a couple times,
Do you?
Yeah. 31 years in another month.
I can remember discussing it, even with John's, in the last 3 years, because he's gone. It's like,
Yeah.
he's doing it. And he still wanted to, so it's like, okay.
Well, he's got the time too. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Carol,
Even
it
when
takes a
he's
lot
in
of time with
Florida,
Carol,
he's
too.
involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you gotta have the time, you gotta be willing to put the time in and the effort, and that's Carol and John right now.
Yep.
I mean, I do what I can do, but
So
I'm
it
just
says
recently
that,
retired.
Still stretching the legs out.
So at least for a year, he's the chair.
Here's an answer.
There's an answer.
Yeah, it says the appointment shall be for a period of 1 year.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay.
it's every year.
Okay.
So I'm sure Elizabeth will make us do it.
Yes, I think so.
I know, yeah,
Nobody else did.
Yeah,
Elizabeth will.
I know.
thank you, Steph.
6.3, discussion of filing documents at the Registry of Deeds. This is more Stephanie's thing, but I did talk to her about it. I think she was,
It's gonna be digital?
this was not the past practice, right? Before, and then she wanted to do it.
Yeah, she wants to speak to you guys about that, so if we can just,
We'll hold on to it, but in my opinion, as I discussed with her, the recording of plans and A&Rs and special permits should really be the applicant who's issued it, and not, because they may have reasons for recording things and not recording things, and plus, that's really their responsibility, not ours, but I think she wanted to talk about it. And then I believe she has a director's report,
Yeah, it's in the packet.
Yep.
and we can have her go through that.
She did?
She is at a city council meeting downstairs. And then just moving on, it looks like Tom.
She's here.
Here she is. Tom is going to be the next representative for the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission.
How'd that happen?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't know. It was Thursday
no, we're
night,
up to.
Oh, now he's,
but it's only once a month,
it
right?
didn't work
Once
for
a
you,
month.
right?
That's my,
I'll put up with it.
Okay.
How did it end up in his?
he said he did.
He volunteered. He teaches on Thursday. So I
That's right.
thought it was Thursday morning, so it would be real easy for me because I don't really
Do it.
You don't really do
Thursday
much
night,
to begin with, you know? That's all right, it's a real contact.
I'll try it.
Yeah, try it. You haven't done it yet, right?
No.
Yeah, just.
I'll do it for a year.
1 or 2, yeah.
When you,
That's what I do.
Okay.
I think everybody puts
Okay.
their year in.
and try to be nice.
So, all right, Elizabeth, we made it through the agenda. We just, we nominated John again and Carol again as chair and vice chair. I love talking to myself in third person. And then you can go through your director's report, and also if you want to talk about the filing of documents. I kind of briefed the board on that, but you can bring up that too.
Okay. Let me get settled real quick.
It only goes from 3 to 6.
So problem solved.
Always goes later.
I'm excited. I employed the help of Paul to help me get a ambitious young, in this case it's a gentleman, to come be our intern, and I employed Carol to help me with the interview process. We have agreed upon a student who's a senior in the program who's working on a second bachelor's. So he's expected to graduate in May of 2019. And pending the reference check, we'll have him be starting in our office, and he's going to help us with the master plan and with other duties around the office. So we're quite excited to have him on board. I'm not going to say his name yet because we are waiting on final reference checks, etc. And moving on, my director's report, I invited, I don't want to keep the building official here longer than we need to, so I want to move to this third item on the report called Special Permits Letter of Denial. It has come to my attention that there is a disconnect in communication in City Hall in terms of dealing with special permits. I'm hearing one matter of procedure from the building department and reading another in my book. And I'm wondering if perhaps our book is outdated and doesn't include the correct procedure, and if that's the case, we need to think about maybe updating it and updating our applications to include the correct procedure, because I will say that last week we had a member of the public come in, read our application process for a special permit, follow it to the letter of the law, exactly what was said to be submitted, followed everything, and then when it came in, I was told by another city department, the building department, kindly told that a piece of the application was missing because a letter of denial was required. And I feel that Peter's going to tell us about that, but I feel it's unfair to the applicant to have them do their due diligence, turn everything in, and yet be delayed because they don't have everything. And it reflects poorly on our department to say, oh, well, wait a minute, we have an unwritten rule that it's not in our application, but you have to turn in XYZ. I don't think that's fair, so I want to defer to Peter so he can explain to us what the process is.
Well, can I sit here?
Of course.
Anywhere you'd like.
Okay, so what's happened is, years ago, we ran into a little issue in the building department where somebody might need a special permit from the ZBA or the city council or from the planning board. And what would happen is every once in a while, somebody would come in, find paperwork for a special permit, fill it out, turn it in to the wrong place. Because they were told they needed a special permit, but maybe they weren't specifically told, or they didn't hear which place. The other thing is, you might need a variance or a special permit if it's from the ZBA. And so people were filling out paperwork looking for a variance. They needed a special permit, vice versa. Or they were going to the zoning board of appeals when they needed to go to the planning board. So the different departments came up with a solution, which is you go to the building department first. We write up a letter of denial telling you which permits you need. Then we send you over to the assessors, because if it's a special permit, you need your abutters list. And that's how the assessors know to do an abutters list. Because once again, we had people going in looking for abutters lists for like site plan approval. They didn't need an abutters list. So we put this together, and it's been working pretty good until the other day when this gentleman came in, and it didn't go so good for that one person. But that's how we've been doing it.
Peter, why? Just curious.
I'm not sure how he got the paperwork or anything.
So thanks for that explanation. I'm reading section 7. The reason because Elizabeth brought it up, and I always, because we're here, we're not downstairs, 5 So I was under the impression, but I think now that if we have a set of instructions, like the city council has a set of instructions, this is what you do in order to seek approval of a special permit that has to be issued by the city council. And I think we need the same one in the planning department as well. Because I was just under the impression in my own mind, if it's spelled out in the ordinance that you need a special permit, they just apply for the special permit for cell towers, for,
Solar.
solar, things like that, that's actually stated in the ordinance. These are the,
Tables.
this is what you need for, in the table of uses, that says
Yeah.
special permit by the planning board. And I thought more, your denial letters came more as something where the party would be in violation of doing something more, and that would be more of an appeal to the ZBA. Variances, other types of special permits, et cetera. So, but with that explanation where it would be a smoother process because then people would know where they'd go, that's perfectly acceptable to me. And I think maybe we can ask the planning department to just put a checklist together and that it includes for the applicant to know that they have to also get a denial letter from you, even if it's spelled out in the ordinance that they specifically require a special permit for a particular project. The city council has one. I mean, we probably should do the same thing. They'll make things easier. So that, I was just looking for that explanation.
So I know in the past, some things have gone to the ZBA when they shouldn't have.
Right.
They should have come here, but they voted on it, they got approved on it, but wait a minute, you know.
Well, and that's what we're trying to stop. We're
Right,
trying to get people to go to the right place.
Yep.
Now, once they go, if somebody does sneak through and they go to the wrong place, it's also a big waste of money for them, because if they paid for the advertising and everything, and they show up in front of the ZBA, and the ZBA says, we can't act on this.
Right.
So we're trying to, it's just a way to try to streamline it. Somebody has to do it. It could be us, it could be the planning board. The difference is that when it comes to the zoning issues, I have to be the one that does it. And I don't know if there's any law or rules that say the planning board has to do, be the one that gives you the special permit or tell you to go get a butters list. I have to be the one that does it for zoning because I'm the zoning enforcement officer. So the other departments, like the assessors, they were in on this a couple years ago, actually quite a few years ago, and it worked good for them too, because they had several instances where their help was doing a butters list, and then they came to find out they didn't need them. So here it is, they got all this work they did.
Waste of time.
And waste of time, nobody pays for it, and it's like, okay, now, so the other departments all agreed to it. It's been working pretty good. And like I says, it's not like we're trying to steal stuff, because, we're more than happy to pass work off onto somebody else.
We have to.
So,
Yeah, that's fine.
We want to make sure it works.
yeah.
In the easiest way. But we still need a checklist here.
I think that we should have one.
We should have a checklist, but,
Right.
to your point, I think that, you still have to do all the detail stuff. Yeah. So as long as we have a checklist, it just makes it easier. Yeah, that's good.
Great. Well, thanks for coming up.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank
you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does the board want to review the form before we issue it?
I think you can let Carol review it on our behalf.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
If she signs off, it's good.
You are vice chair.
That's right.
Unanimously reappointed.
Okay, so moving on to I'm going to jump back up to deadline for application materials. I'm trying to read all my documents to get familiar with procedures and processes, and I was reading through the procedures and processes for planning board, and it says that the deadline for application materials is Tuesday at noon. I'm not sure if the board's aware that applicants have been told various deadlines, including Wednesday at noon, Thursday at noon, and the book says Tuesday at noon.
Is that when our meetings used to be on?
They used to be.
That's when our meetings used to be on Tuesdays.
Yeah, so it should be Monday, right?
Well, it should be what works for us, even a couple days prior to that, right? Because you got to get it on the agenda.
Previous Friday, maybe.
So I thought we had come to the agreement that Thursdays would be for the
So the
next meeting,
on Tuesday.
or on Monday.
On Monday, yeah.
Right. That's what I thought we had agreed to, before.
You're right.
But But Elizabeth's suggesting, because now it's,
Yeah, but I mean-
now it's Wednesday before the Monday meeting.
Yep,
So when do you want to do it?
Well,
works
just
for you?
as a practical matter,
yep.
when an application comes in at noon on Wednesday, and packets are expected to go out at noon on Wednesday,
right.
it puts staff in a big crunch.
Right.
To do it on Monday.
And things can go wrong.
Yeah.
The machines can break. Someone can come into our office and someone from the public and interrupt us. It's just not good to make it that tight every single week.
Agreed.
So the more time we can get, the better, in my opinion. I did discuss this with the vice chair, and
Mondays.
we talked about Monday as being a possibility.
Yeah, sounds good.
Because that
It'll
gives you
give
2
you a
days.
Wednesday, so.
Monday at
right?
noon.
Yeah.
Sounds
That
good.
give you enough time?
It'll be improved
Better than.
than what it is now. We can try it out and
Try
see
it
how-
out, let's see how it works, and if it's still tight, then maybe we'll push it to the Friday, the week before.
And I don't want to throw this on applicants for the next meeting. Maybe we can wait a couple of weeks, maybe for March 1st, make it effective March 1st.
Yeah. Works.
Do we have a motion for that, or is this just a
We
decision?
don't need one, it's just a communication thing.
Just a
communication.
Yep,
So it'll be ready.
Okay.
So it shall be done.
So it'll be done.
that's so it is.
All right, Eric.
Moving on, master plan. I employed all of my staff to help out with this process, starting out with a single question, and that's, what do you want for the future of Leominster? And I created a spreadsheet, and we all interviewed Leominster residents and business people with business in Leominster, and received over 90 responses. And that was just in about a week and a half. We're continuing to collect responses, and does the board want me to print this out and look at it, or do you want it in some format to review? I have it on a public drive right now that's only accessible by city staff, but I could put it
How's the
in a
spreadsheet
format
set?
like in a Dropbox.
It's on a spreadsheet,
It's
right?
an Excel spreadsheet. I could put it in a Dropbox and the board could review it. I just don't want it to get altered, but if the board sees it, that's fine.
Why don't we get a hard copy in the,
Yeah, in the next package.
yeah. the
You would
next
like a hard
package.
copy? Okay.
Yeah, that way they don't have to worry about anybody playing it
Okay.
mistakenly.
I also am working on a more extensive survey. We're going to be doing a community survey, and that'll probably have about 75 or so questions, more or less. And I pulled together a bunch of questions and gave them over to the mayor, and that's under review. So you'll be hearing more about that in the future. Also, moving on with another master plan item, we're going to do, I discussed this with the board before, we're going to do a snapshot of Leominster. I'll have that ready by February 1st, so I can just print out a copy and have that in the March or the next meeting, whichever that is. I didn't know if you decided on meeting dates yet. And then grant money. It turns out there's grant money that might be available for our master plan, and if it's out there, maybe we should think about getting some of that or applying for some of those funds to help us out, because it can be an expensive process to do a master plan. So that's what we've been working on. As the board requested, I left out all of the fluff. It's not really fluff, but all of the office day-to-day operations. If anybody has any questions or wants to come by, I welcome you to do that. Meet with me and my staff during the business day. I know some of you have already done that, and it's good to have you.
Just want to go back to 6.3.
Did you want to, I filled them in, Elizabeth, on the recording of plans. I didn't know if you want to add anything.
Yes, as I think I said this at the last meeting, it looks like the cost, no, Registry of Deeds. Yes, we've started implementing the process that we talked about in the October,
Digital.
or the November 4th meeting, I believe. Yes, in terms of filing plans for the applicant. And we're learning that with A&Rs, that might not be the best course of action, specifically because I'm hearing that when a applicant files the plan at the registry, they get taxed on it, and some people don't want to pay their taxes, a higher tax rate right away. And the other piece is that the engineers are telling us that when they have a plan approved, they haven't necessarily received their payment for the project, and their way of ensuring their payment is holding the plan ransom and not filing it until they get their payment. So that's with A&Rs. I don't know that it holds true for special permits, approval of extensions of approval and such. But for A&Rs, it's definitely something that I think it's a good idea to give the applicant the little card with the postage on it so that they can take it to the registry and then we get that back telling us when it's filed. But I don't think it's such a good idea anymore after hearing the feedback from applicants that we file the plans on their behalf.
Yeah. We agree.
That's good.
We talked about it a little while ago.
Yeah.
So we agree with that. Yep.
All right.
Let them be responsible for it, which they always have been in the past.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
That sounds good.
Well, wait. I did have something else. I have to do my budget, and I have to get that ready before the next planning board meeting. So there was one thing in the budget that I thought maybe.
Raises, you mean?
Well, is that we can talk about that. Is that a joke or?
Well, we've got one raise since in 30
Well,
years.
but it was a 50%, it was 100% raise.
Yeah.
And that was what year was that? What year was that?
That was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
I'm thinking it was more than that.
More than that.
Yeah, we've been here longer than that.
Yeah.
I mean, you never got 500, right?
No,
You always got 1,000.
yes.
I got
How long have you been on the board?
We used to get 400.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah.
400.
Okay, so if someone finds that year and knows it, it would help me to argue
It's got to
on your
be more than
behalf.
10 years.
No, the mayor's not gonna have it. Crazy.
The HR would have that because they draw the checks.
They don't have it.
Yeah.
I can investigate that.
Or John would know. Like that chance with John or saying yes.
I can also study what other cities of a similar size are paying their planning board and see if it's compatible.
I think some places actually pay per case.
But I do have
Appeals.
Zoning board.
Zoning board.
What was your other?
I do have an administrative question. I have a staff member who is appropriated 100% of their funds to be a CDBG manager, grant manager, but yet in reality, this is prior to me starting, the position has been, I'll say 80% CDBG, 20% planning, yet the employee is not getting paid by the planning budget. So I'm wondering if the board wants to have another staff member with time dedicated to planning, or would you prefer I not have the support and have that person focus mainly on CDBG? Because if I go forward with a change, I'm going to have to ask in my budget for funding for, and I believe it. I'm learning the process as we proceed with this, if we proceed with this. But I believe the city council has to approve it. So I don't know how the board feels right now in our department. You're probably super familiar with this, but for the public, I have one part-time planning clerk, principal planning clerk, for support of my role. And I have an economic development coordinator who doesn't do planning. They're 100% dedicated to economic development. I have another person devoted to events and small business, not dedicated to planning. And then I have a person who, on paper, is dedicated 100% to CDBG, but yet in practice, just making the department flow better has helped with planning. But there's no budget paying for that portion, so we really need to correct it and make sure that the person's being paid appropriately. So either we do A, tell the employee that you're paid 100% by CDBG, so therefore you're only going to be doing CDBG work. Or B, say we like you to do 20% of your work for planning and 80% CDBG, but we need to get funding to pay the employee appropriately if they're going to be doing planning work. So I have to go to my budget and I have to ask for this.
Does that, I mean, she's 100% funded by CDBG.
Correct.
And there's plenty of money in CDBG to continue her funding.
That's not a question.
So why would we take it on as an expense? I'm just, that's just.
Well, if we want the
question.
support,
Yeah.
we need to pay for the support because we can't have funds.
So do we lose, well, that gets to my point, do we lose money from CDBG as a result of that?
That's something I have to research. I'm just breaking it to
That's
the
my
board.
question. Do we lose some funding that we would normally get for CDBG?
I don't believe we do,
made
but-
that happen? So that's the only question.
Is that funding based on what we have for costs?
I don't know, Tom. I don't know how it's split out, but, I'm wondering, if we lose funding as a result of that, and then we look to pick it up somewhere else, to me, it kind of doesn't make sense. But I know what you're saying, too, about having the other help. But I just wonder if we lose money from CDBG. That's all.
My inclination is that if you feel that there's a need and you can do the assessing and figure out exactly what you want to put forward what you feel is appropriate, and if the budget is accepted, the budget's accepted.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
That's my own
I'm
personal.
not sure how to start this next, but since we're here, can I assume that the reason the 100% CDBG person is doing some planning is because they don't need to be 100% CDBG and they have extra time which they devote to planning?
That's a question that I'm too new to answer. I will say that I believe the director before me relied on the employee for assistance, and it was helpful to her. That's what I gather.
I think she has experience in planning, so she can do it. I don't think it's because there's not enough work for her to do, and I don't think it's because she's neglecting her own job. I just think she has another area of expertise.
Another skill.
Which would benefit.
Clearly.
I just say if it's appropriate and lawful and possible, then request it.
Yeah.
Okay, so a 20% planning, 80% CDBG.
Yeah.
And this employee has
check and make
expressed
sure you don't
interest.
lose CDBG funding, too, as a result of not having a 100% dedicated person.
The hours dedicated to it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, so those are but if it looks good to you, Elizabeth, your department,
Okay.
request it. Like Pat said, all I can do is say no, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That good?
That's good.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone say no? You want to stay? No? Okay.
That's a great meeting.
Meeting adjourned.